A Russian fighter jet like this one flying dangerously close to a U.S. Navy reconnaissance aircraft over the Black Sea this week, and it was armed. This coming one day after the president met with Russia's foreign minister and ambassador to the U.S. in the Oval Office. Lucas Tomlinson is live at the Pentagon with more on this. It's stunning, Lucas.
Well, it is, Melissa. That Russian jet came within 20 feet of a U.S. Navy reconnaissance plane flying in the Black Sea on Tuesday. And what's more, as you mentioned, that Russian jet was armed with 6 air-to-air missiles, making the incident much more provocative, according to defense officials here at the Pentagon, who say the incident lasted about an hour and occurred in international airspace in the Black Sea off the coast of Crimea, which the Russians annexed from Ukraine in 2014. And since then, the U.S. military has stepped up its reconnaissance flights in the region and sent more warships to the Black Sea. In February, Russian fighter jets buzzed a U.S. Navy destroyer in the Black Sea as dozens of U.S. Army tanks and hundreds of American soldiers deployed to Romania, not far away for a training exercise. And Melissa, it's noteworthy that same U.S. destroyer the Russians buzzed in February, USS Porter, was one of the warships which launched cruise missiles into Syria last month. And moments ago, Fox News has also learned about another incident, this time in Asia. U.S. officials say a Russian Su-24 attack jet was intercepted by South Korean warplanes just 70 miles from the USS Carl Vinson Strike Group currently steaming in the Sea of Japan. Additionally, we have also learned a new Russian shipment of surface-to-air missiles has arrived in Syria for the advanced S-400 air defense system, doubling the number of missiles Russia has in Syria after leading a new ceasefire agreement just days ago. And Melissa, that Russian shipment arrived in Syria one day after the Russian foreign minister arrived here in Washington. And what's more, it occurred on the same day that Defense Secretary Jim Mattis traveled to Lithuania on Russia's doorstep to reassure nervous Baltic allies.
Russia's President Vladimir Putin told the newly elected South Korean President Moon Jae-in that he is ready to play a constructive role in resolving North Korea's nuclear threat. Putin made the comment after Moon said the foremost task to boost cooperation between the two countries was to strengthen strategic bilateral communication to find a solution to curb North Korea's nuclear threat. Moon was cited as saying to Putin, "We hope for Russia to play a constructive role in order for North Korea to stop with its nuclear provocations and go the way of denuclearization."
North Korea on Friday accusing the U.S. and South Korea of a plot to kill Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un and others among the North Korean leadership with a biochemical weapon. North Korea's Ministry of State Security in a statement calling the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency and South Korea's intelligence service, quote, hotbed of evils in the world, who crafted a, quote, hideous terrorist group it says infiltrated the North, corrupting and bribing a local resident, identified only by the last name of Kim, to carry out their vicious plot. The statement relayed through North Korean news agency KCNA, which added, "They hatched a plot of letting human scum Kim commit bomb terrorism, instructing him to use biochemical substances to kill North Korea's leadership." The statement calling the plot a, quote, pipe dream that could never succeed. Assassination by biochemical weapon? That might sound familiar. North Korean agents are accused of using VX nerve gas to murder Kim Jong-un's estranged half-brother in a Malaysian airport in February. Tensions on the North Korean peninsula have been high for weeks, with North Korea poised for a potential 6th nuclear test or a test launch of another ballistic missile in defiance of UN Security Council resolutions. The U.S. House of Representatives overwhelmingly approved to tighten sanctions on North Korea on Thursday.
North Korea sending a rare letter to the U.S. Congress. North Korea state media claiming the country sent a letter to the House of Representatives over new sanctions, saying they're, quote, a heinous act against humanity. The House passed a bill last week that targets North Korea's shipping industry and use of slave labor.
North Korea says it's ready to have talks with the U.S. under the right conditions. The claim is from senior Pyongyang diplomat Cho Sun-hui. It comes amid increasing international efforts to press the North over its pursuit of nuclear weapons capability. In April, President Donald Trump warned that a major conflict with Pyongyang is possible. Trump added he would prefer a diplomatic outcome to the dispute. As a controversial anti-missile shield is installed in the region, South Korea says dialogue must be used in parallel with sanctions to resolve the problem of North Korea's weapons strategy. A US aircraft carrier group is on maneuvers in the region. So far, Pyongyang has conducted 5 nuclear tests in defiance of UN and US sanctions. It says it needs such weapons to defend itself against foreign aggression.
With the new Liberal commander-in-chief championing military self-defense as one of his administration's core agendas, there is growing speculation South Korea could arm itself with nuclear-powered submarines. Moon brought up the issue of self-defense last month during his campaign, telling a group of reporters that Seoul is primed to have such weapons in its arsenal. He may push to renegotiate the existing South Korea-US agreement on the civil uses of atomic energy. As of now, Seoul is only allowed to use uranium that has been enriched to contain less than 20% of the isotope U-235. And that's not enough to fuel nuclear-powered submarines. Support of such upgrade further intensified in August of 2016 when North Korea successfully test-fired a submarine-launched ballistic missile.
Japan is reportedly considering acquiring Tomahawk cruise missiles to counter the increasing threats from North Korea. According to Japanese media, a proposal is currently being circulated that would have Japan procure an unspecified number of Tomahawks. If true, the purchase of these offensive cruise missiles would be a first for Japan and a major change in the country's pacifist security policy. Pyongyang has repeatedly threatened to attack Japan, but recent advances by North Korea have reportedly left Tokyo wanting the ability to not only shoot down North Korean missiles, but also to destroy them before launch. Currently, Japan maintains so-called self-defense forces only. Offensive weapons such as aircraft carriers and cruise missiles are prohibited as a matter of policy. Japan right now does not have long-range weapons that could cross the Sea of Japan and preemptively destroy threats from North Korea.
The U.S. is reportedly finalizing arms deals worth over $100 billion with Saudi Arabia. Media quoted unnamed White House officials as saying that the deals cover sales of arms and ships as well as maintenance services. The sources said the deals are part of a $300 billion package to boost Saudi military capabilities in 10 years. The officials said signing of the contracts is part of the agenda of the U.S. president's visit to Saudi Arabia next week. Riyadh has been importing tens of billions of dollars of arms from the U.S. over the past years.
And elsewhere, Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Thursday that the peaceful coexistence of Palestine and Israel is an indispensable condition for security and stability in the Middle East. Putin made the comments after talks with his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas in the Russian city of Sochi. Now, Putin said that Moscow will continue to support the resumption of direct dialogue between Palestine and Israel. And Abbas accepted Putin's proposal for direct dialogue in Moscow and said Palestine is willing to work with Russia and the U.S. to bring about an end to conflicts with Israel.
Officials say at least 25 people have died in a bombing which appeared to target the deputy chairman of the Pakistan Senate. The explosion occurred next to a convoy carrying the official in the conflict-plagued southwestern region of Baluchistan. Senator Abdul Ghaffur Haidari was among 35 people injured in the blast. He told Reuters news agency he believed he was the intended target of the attack. Haidari, a right-wing Sunni Muslim, is part of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's coalition government. Under Sharif, security in Pakistan has improved, but pressure has been mounting since February, when a fresh wave of attacks left over 100 people dead. ISIL later claimed responsibility for the conflict convoy bombing.
A major so-called ransomware attack is underway worldwide, with more than 75,000 attacks reported. Now, this particular map right here shows where the attacks are taking place, with 99 countries now affected by this virus. That's according to security software company Avast. The malware displays a screen demanding $300 and the cybercurrency Bitcoin from the owners of the affected computers. In the UK, it's targeted state-run hospitals, and companies from the USA, Spain and Portugal were also hacked during this attack.
A number of NHS organizations have reported to NHS Digital that they have been affected by a ransomware attack. NHS Digital is working closely with the National Cybersecurity Centre, the Department of Health and NHS England to support affected organizations and ensure patient safety is protected.
Like many other companies, FedEx is experiencing interference with some of our Windows-based systems caused by malware. We're implementing remediation steps as quickly as possible.
This is absolutely unprecedented, and it does seem to have a lot of people spooked. The National Security Services, they sent a very technical report advising people the usual precautions, but also not to give in or pay any of the ransoms. There have been tweets by the thousands all day from people saying that they were employees in these particular companies, all major companies including banks, who've later categorically denied it, but the employees sent out a lot of unconfirmed reports saying that the attack was actually quite massive.
It's fair to say this has been a calamitous few weeks for the German Defense Ministry and for the Bundeswehr as a whole. This latest revelation that's come out, it was told to the press this week that back in February a tank was broken into as it was stationed in Munster, and from there 2 assault rifles, 1 pistol, 1 flare gun, 2 magazines without ammunition, 2 radio devices and 1 set of binoculars were taken. Well, this is the latest scandal, as I say. I think the Defence Ministry might have said, well, there's so much else going on, we might as well put this news out, considering it happened back in February. That's because the German Defence Ministry and the Bundeswehr are wrapped up in one of their biggest scandals to date at the moment. This revolves around the German soldier, the senior lieutenant Franco Albrecht, who was arrested after it was claimed he was he disguised himself as a refugee, in fact came to live here in a refugee centre in the Bavarian town I'm in, passing himself off as that with the intention of carrying out a terrorist attack and laying the blame for that at the door of those who've come to the country seeking asylum.
Swiss authorities have admitted they cannot ban an Islamic Salafist group known as True Religion, despite grave security concerns over, quote, forbidden activities. The organization has distributed millions of Qurans all across Europe, including Switzerland. However, it's already been banned in Germany following police raids and a criminal investigation against its members, this after they were found to be recruiting people to join the fight in Iraq and Syria. Zurich police told us why they can't ban the group.
We cannot ban the organization because they're not organized, they have no address or something like that. We have given a recommendation, the cities will have to act.
Police explained that a ban would clash with religious freedom rights. However, they add local authorities can bar them and recommend doing so. Officers described the group's Quran distributing campaign as a front for incitement to jihadist activities.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement's most recent anti-gang operation has ended with more than 1,300 people arrested across the country. ICE calls it the largest gang roundup in its investigative branch's history. The 6-week operation was led by ICE's Homeland Security Investigations Unit and included federal, state, and local law enforcement. Of the 1,378 total arrests, about 1,100 were either members of or affiliated with a gang. Targeted gangs include the Bloods, the Crips, the Sureños, and MS-13. The last one is a gang from El Salvador Salvador that has more than 10,000 active members in the U.S. alone. Last month, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions called out MS-13 specifically when announcing the Justice Department would be cracking down on gangs. More than 2/3 of the people arrested by ICE are U.S. citizens. Besides the arrest, law enforcement officials also seized firearms and various narcotics, including cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine during the operation.
And now, car workers at a central French plant are threatening to blow up their factory if their financial demands aren't met.
I want to just give you a flavour of what's been happening here first. Just behind me, you might be able to see the fires are burning, and that is an omen of what's to come if the demands of these factory workers are not met. Now, they have already been destroying the equipment from the factory, and they say they will continue to do that every day until assurances are met that this factory will remain open. They have already been in discussions, government-led discussions, that the factory workers here say have got nowhere. And what they're doing now is they say that they are so disappointed with what's happening. They're so worried about their future that they're prepared to blow up the factory themselves. I want you to take a look at just behind me. Now, this is an air liquid tank, and on it you may see the words "On va tout péter," which basically means we are ready to blow it up. And this is not the only booby trap they've set. Actually, the entire factory just behind me, there is a layer of oil that runs all the way underneath that factory, and that oil is normally used to let the mechanical devices in the factory work as best as they possibly can. And what they're saying is that they have already put petrol canisters in with that oil, and they're ready to light it, basically turn this entire factory into a fire if it's not kept open. And what they're unhappy about is the fact that this factory has got a buyer that's ready to come in and buy it, is ready to secure hundreds of jobs here, but they need the assurances from their major, the people that they supply to their major companies, that they will continue to buy the products here. And so far, they don't have it. Now, this is not the only factory that is going to be landing on the inbox of the incoming President Emmanuel Macron next week when he takes office here in France. Another factory is also one that he will be looking at very closely, and that's the Whirlpool factory in northern France, in Amiens, his hometown. He was there on the campaign trail, and he didn't receive a very warm welcome from the factory workers. Take a look at what happened.
Clashes between police and protesters are growing increasingly common in Venezuela, but on Friday the demonstrators were a little older. Opposition leaders arranged a grandparents' march in the capital city of Caracas, encouraging elderly Venezuelans to march in protest of the country's ongoing economic crisis. The marchers were turned back by riot police, and there were reports of security services using pepper spray on demonstrators. Venezuela is currently suffering from severe shortages of food and medicine. The country's health ministry recently reported sharp increases in infant and maternal deaths, as well as a rise in diseases like malaria and diphtheria. The minister responsible for that report was sacked shortly after it was released. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has blamed the marches on hostile foreign powers instead and organized counter-protest of supporters to match them. At least 39 people have died in the current wave of protests, which started 6 weeks ago.
At least one person has died from the Ebola virus in the Democratic Republic of Congo, according to the World Health Organization and the country's health ministry. The last outbreak of the disease killed at least 11,300 people in West Africa. Tests on 9 people who came down with a hemorrhagic fever in the northeast of the country confirmed the presence of the virus. 3 people have died from the fever, and other samples are still being tested. 6 more people remain hospitalized. This is the 8th outbreak to hit the Congo. That's more than any other country. The deadly virus was first detected in its dense tropical forests in 1976.
Ikan besar yang terdampar di pantai Masiba diperkirakan panjangnya sekitar berapa meter kira-kira? Lewati sekitar 30 meter dengan lebar sekitar 5.
Railroads for freight trains from China to the heart of Europe.
a huge warm water port in Pakistan, and a number of other major infrastructure projects across Eurasia and Africa. China's spending estimates for the new roads, railways, and ports have run into the trillions of dollars. Chinese President Xi Jinping's ambitious plan is to revive the ancient Silk Road trade routes that carried goods from east to west.
我们现在要做好这个新世纪的丝路新篇章，圆我们的中国梦。
Through the initiative labeled One Belt, One Road, China aims to build commercial links with 2/3 of the global population, hoping it will boost its own economy and expand Beijing's global influence. 4 years after the plan was announced, the Chinese government touts successes such as trains and boats reaching faraway destinations including Pakistan, Kazakhstan, and London. However, many of these routes are far from economically viable. In the Belt and Road Plan, the Belt refers to the physical overland routes, a network of highways and railways. The Road refers to the shipping routes that connect China's southeastern coast with India, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Europe, and entails building and expanding ports and industrial parks. To support its vision, Beijing has lined up a $40 billion Silk Road Fund and is also counting on the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and the new development bank created by major emerging economies. The new Silk Road carries major geopolitical implications.
The leadership that China is now taking in the overall world of development, I think, is unprecedented.
China sees a historic opportunity to extend its clout at a time when U.S. President Donald Trump is rethinking trade commitments and focusing on U.S. interests. In the past 2 years, China reported pouring nearly $30 billion in direct investment into more than 50 countries.
Here's one spectacular event you won't want to miss this summer. It's a total solar eclipse sweeping the U.S. from coast to coast on August 21st. A total eclipse occurs when the moon moves precisely between the Earth and the sun, casting a long moving shadow. It will start near Salem, Oregon, and move southeasterly until it sweeps out to sea from South Carolina. The width of total darkness, that's called totality, will be about 70 miles. The closer to the center of that path, the deeper the darkness. And get this, the United States is the only place in the world where you can see the eclipse in person. So if you want to get the best seats, here's some travel options. For the adventurous, you might want to try the John Day Fossil Beds National Monument in Oregon. Normally, camping isn't allowed there, but if you volunteer to help during the eclipse, you can camp for free. The remote town of Casper, Wyoming might be a good choice too. Prospects are good for clear weather and the wide open spaces are great for viewing. And on to St. Joseph, Missouri. That's where an eclipse viewing party with solar telescopes is scheduled at the local airport. In Tennessee, Nashville will be the place to be. It's the largest city completely in the path of totality. And Columbia, South Carolina will be the last big city in the path. It's the most accessible place in the eastern U.S. to see the end of the great eclipse. If you miss it, you have a few years to prepare for the next one in 2024.